I'm going to talk for a bit while everyone gets up to speed. So launch the web browser of your choice and log into uweval.service-now.com just so we can get started. I'm going to give you an overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to go through a few slides and talk about some terminology. We'll go through a basic workshop with what's called a new call module. It'll be a new thing for many people. And do some service offerings, filters, and then take a break. So at about 50 minutes in, we'll take a short break, 10-minute break. So just keep in mind, if you get frustrated, we can reset at that time. And then we're going to go through service requests and incident management, take another break, and then wrap up with a few more topics. Any questions about our agenda today? Oh, great. What? The new call application. Well, technically, it is a module within the Service Desk application. It's a form. It's okay. Yeah. Terminology is interesting. We're all going to learn new terminology today. One thing I've learned is to be kind when people misspeak, because we're going to call things records instead of tickets and all that. So, if you call something a ticket, I won't correct you today. Does that sound okay? This is a nice environment for that. And I'll sometimes refer to this as ServiceNow instead of UW Connect. That is okay as well, right? We're branding it UW Connect, but it's on the ServiceNow platform. So just to get rolling here, we are on a mission to transform how we manage our services and align our work with business needs. And the reason why I'm highlighting this right here is that we're actually going to be aligning or linking our records to actual service offerings. So this is not just management speak that we're aligning our work with business needs. We're literally going to do that within this platform. Many of us have had ITIL training. How many people have had ITIL foundations? So usually about 50% in any room. There's a role for campus governance and also roles for services and process in here. So we have process owners defining how work is done across UW IT. So what does that mean to you? Well, for right now, we're replacing RT with the UW Connect ServiceNow platform. We're going to change how we handle requests and incidents, hopefully improve our workflow. And that'll also result in us being more transparent with our customers. And I'll show you what that means. We're going to change the way we communicate with our customers in the interest of being more transparent. So let's get started off. Some of you have had ITIL training. I'll define a request. So this would be a request for a standard service with predefined approval or general assistance. For example, you need a router or a computer installed or calling up for help logging into a service. We're going to differentiate the request, from an incident. An incident would actually be an unplanned interruption in our service. No internet access or failure of a redundant hard drive. I like these examples because someone might call us up and say, I need help logging in. It might be a password reset standard service, and that would be a request. While you're investigating it, you might realize, oh, wait, there's a bigger issue here, a certificate issue or a server down. That would actually become an incident. Does that make sense? So instead of referring to everything as tickets, they're going to be classified as requests or incidents when they come in the front door. Questions about that? We're also going to just touch on the concept of problem management. How many people have heard of a problem before, an official problem? So this is new to many of us. If we have an incident or an outage of service, our role and our goal is to restore service as quickly as possible. But we might want to track that issue for a long-term fix. So that would become a problem. So incidents can be converted to problems. And when you have a rainy day someday in the future, you can investigate the root cause of that problem, and maybe it's a big hardware upgrade or a software upgrade down the road. That's independent of the actual incident or outage. Okay. How many people currently use RTFM or other knowledge sources to help answer questions, client questions, or to solve issues? What we've done here is imported these three sources, our RTFM articles, routers reference, and Mon help guides. All of that is available in the current knowledge base for you to use. We're going to practice using current knowledge a little bit. You can author new content, but the knowledge process is not fully baked yet. So we're not going to talk about building new articles. That'll be covered in help documentation. Sound okay? A little bit of demonstration etiquette. please stop me. Say, hey, Jake, I missed that. Please clarify. I welcome questions today. One thing I'll ask you to do is refrain from asking process questions. For example, if you find yourself saying, well, what my group really does is this, this, and this, and we want the tool to do X, Y, and Z, that gets us off in a rabbit hole, and I can't answer all process questions today. What I really want to do is get through the full demo and encourage you to ask questions during the break if they're detailed, hard questions. If I can't answer them, they can actually be sent to Help at You for a thorough answer. And the ultimate answer may also be that you need to meet as a service team and have someone from the support team or training team come work with you on your workflows. But it's hard to address all possible workflows within this classroom environment. Does that make sense? So ask your questions, but I might say, well, let's wait for the break to talk about that one. And it's not that I don't like your question, I just can't handle them all. Okay, so everyone has opened up a browser and logged in with your NetID and has a page like this. Anyone not on this page? So one of the things that people often do is they want to click all over the place and explore. How many people have already kicked the tires and explored it a little bit? So that's great if you've already done that. That helps with that initial tendency to want to click all over the place. Today I'm going to ask you to follow along. I'll be your tour guide. I'll ask you to click when I click. I know that may seem silly for computing professionals. Say, hey, I want to explore. But after this workshop is the time to explore more. I'd like to walk you through some predefined scenarios to make the experience as smooth as possible. That sound okay? Excellent. We're going to talk a little bit about, to get started, or we'll do an overview, and then we're going to go into the new call application as I had spoken about earlier. So everyone is here on a page kind of like mine. If your UW eval does not have a home page at the top, one thing you can do to start off is click on Switch to Page and choose Home Page from your list. This should be the default home page for all of us when we come into the application. It's going to show you my work, which is essentially all of the records that have been assigned to me. So if you look over to the far right, if you could see it on this page, you'd see my name against all these records. And below that, it's going to be my group's incidents and requests. Does everyone see something like that on their page? Great. So right now, we aren't looking at individual services or individual assignment groups. This is all the groups I'm a member of. Okay, we'll talk more about groups as we go throughout this presentation. If at any time you want to get back to this page, just click on the UW Connect logo at the top left, and that should bring you back to this home page. It reloads the page. Up in the very top left, you guys all see 3 little toggle switches. I'm going to hover up there in the top left. These switches will turn off our application navigator and the banner. I find that it's not helpful to do that, so I'll ask that you make sure that none of these 4 buttons are dark. Is that okay? So you can click them and then click them off. I know it infuriates some people. I like to show you what not to do first. I hope that's okay. That's one of my tendencies. I can't turn it off. So you can click on them and then make sure they're all clicked off. Okay? The reason why I say that is if you lose your banner, you lose the button to go home and also your global search bar. So once you know what you're doing and you decide you don't need to do that, you can actually toggle these off and have some more screen real estate, especially if you have a small laptop. On the left over here is what is called our Power Edge. You have the ability to drag records and other elements over and bookmark them. So as we go today, I'll show you how to use that and how to interact with that. And I want to highlight the My Records application. In the My Records application, we have a few predefined filters that will help you find your work and your group's work. So we're going to start from here. If you decide you don't like the defaults, you can always change the way you look at your data, of course. But this is where we're all going to start from. Any questions about that? No? Great. We're going to talk about a slightly new concept. We're going to introduce the new call application. This is designed for quick customer data capture. How many people ever get a walk-in or a phone call? Not a lot of people take a phone call. Sometimes it's nice. You can use a new ticket in RT. You could also choose to use this. You can choose to actually log these entries as just general inquiry or other. And if you do that, it's not going to generate an email to the customer. So it's actually a great place to log information for quick data capture. If you choose, you could transfer it and turn it into a request or an incident. And just like the creation of any other ticket, they're going to get an email confirmation that a record has been generated on their behalf. So I just want to differentiate. If you use the new call application, there are 2 destinations that don't generate an email and 2 destinations that do generate an email. And I want to stress the customer communication portion of this. And this is my big complicated graph. This is about as complicated as it gets, but I think it's useful. I want to point out that any email to help at you is going to generate a request record. That makes sense? That's going to be the most common usage for all of us. From there, we can work on tasks. How many people use subtickets right now? Some people use subtickets. Great. I appreciate the hands. I get the feedback. It's helpful. So we will be generating tasks. The tasks can communicate to each other and back to the record. Does that make sense? I just want to note that the tasks do not communicate to the customer. So it's a nice, safe place to do our work. The request record is going to communicate to the customer. The same thing, if we transfer that request to an incident, that will communicate to the customer. And we can also have incident tasks. And remember, I introduced the concept of problem. If we wish to explore a problem, if you want to use that down the road, you could take an incident record and create a problem for future investigation. For a lot of folks, that just means let's log that problem and let someone else figure it out down the road. That make sense? So an idea of the general workflow of an email coming in the front door. If you choose a new call record, that record could end there. Let's say someone just wanted to know what someone's phone number was, or they had the wrong number. Clearly, that doesn't need to be a record in our database. But you may choose to turn it into an incident or a request. At that point, we owe the customer some communication. That make sense? Okay, good. It's a complicated slide for a relatively simple concept. All right. Let's get started. I'll ask that you all go take a look at your application navigator right here. If you have this thing fully expanded, it can be hard to find things at times. What I like to do is contract it first and then go look at the application I want to see. We're going to start off in the Service Desk application, and I want to point out this New Call button. I'm going to give you guys a superpower, although it's not really that. Can you guys grab the New Call icon or word and drag it over to your Power Edge? So I'm just going to do a drag and drop. I've now bookmarked this. I find that's kind of useful. If someone called me up on the phone, I could just click on that and generate a new call record. I don't have to know if it's an incident or a request, or if I even want to ultimately generate a record, I can log it. How many people have sticky notes on their desk with net IDs and all kinds of information cluttering it? Maybe you're better than I do, but I'm trying to ban sticky notes from our office. So I think the new call application is a great way to jot down notes. So let's all click on that and get started. I've told you not to play with the toggles, but I'm going to break that rule. During this presentation, I need a little more screen real estate, so I'm going to toggle this application navigator on and off while I'm presenting, but you don't have to do that. All right, let's take a look at our first record. First thing we're going to learn is the concept of a caller. So everyone in RT is a requester. How many people are seasoned RT veterans here? Okay, so we're requesters in RT. Now we're calling everyone a caller. It's just nomenclature. This is what we call a ServiceNow-ism, where they're giving us some new words to learn. If you call someone a requester, I won't give you a hard time for it. What you can do is actually click in here and type in the UW Net ID of a colleague, if you wish, someone in UW IT that's in the system. I can start searching for myself. So if I type JKUL, I'm going to find a Yahoo email address I put in there. Everyone able to find someone? We're going to pick on the same person over and over. So if you wish, you can pick on a colleague and make them a caller. We're in eval, so no emails will be sent out. So this is a nice, safe place to play. Okay? And a side note, you can always come back to eval and do this again. Come on in. So you can come back, even when we're in production, you can come back to eval and try it out, experiment, and not email customers. You want to sign in, grab a handout? Great. Okay, I'm also going to show you how to create a new caller. So in order to have any record in the system, the person has to exist in our database. So if somebody calls you up on the phone or walks into your office and they're not in the system, I can actually click on this little magnifying glass right there. I could search for them, or I could actually click on New. So if you don't do this at all, or you don't anticipate doing it, you don't have to follow along. I just want to demonstrate that it's possible. I'll go in here, and I'll note that I can put in any name I want. All that really matters is their email address. So if you're going to put a new record in the database, the email address is the primary key. How many people are familiar with databases a little bit? I'll use only minimal database terminology today. I apologize for that, but some people find it helpful. So if someone's already in the system, you can't add them again with that email address. And obviously, just like RT, if someone were to email us a request, they would automatically be added to our system. And Joby Walker, how many people know Joby? He's a great guy. He's imported many months' worth of data of all of our current requesters, so you don't have to add new people into the system. That make sense? So this should be infrequent. I just wanted you to know that you can do it. I'm going to back out because I don't want to put a garbage entry in here. Also, if you try to walk away from a page that has been dirtied, it's asking me, do I really want to lose this data? And I'm going to say yes. But the system is intelligent and does warn us when we're about to do something like that. All right. I like to use my Yahoo email just for fun. It does pull in an outside email and call it a NetID. We just need to be able to see what the email actually is. If it was a person's NetID, it would display there. And also, we're only importing current faculty, student, staff active NetIDs. There are many hundreds of thousands of additional NetIDs that aren't in our system yet. If you get one of those, you can just put in that new call form their NetID at uw.edu, and that their entry will be reconciled automatically. That makes sense? It is infrequent that that'll happen, but I want you to know we can do it. I can put in one-time contact information. This isn't going to change this particular person's directory information, but let's say someone gives me their cell phone number. I can put that in there. And I can put in a short description. Help me log in. Okay. I'll take some notes here. Can't access Google. In this scenario, I don't really know what's going on. I'm just capturing data. Okay. It might turn out that this person isn't a UW person. Right? I'm talking to them on the phone. I have no idea what's going to happen. Well, I just need to capture it as it comes in. So I can choose to actually save this as an other type call. So if you guys could throw some data in there and make it an other call, so you can see the call type. And as you're looking at all these colors, you can see some orange, green, and red. That's important here. Green is telling me all the fields I've changed. Orange is telling me something I can't change. And red is telling me something that's required. I'll do an other. Everyone on the same page? Great. And next, your first big challenge. I would like for everyone to hover over the submit and save buttons, but don't click. I know it's hard not to do that, but hover over them and look at the pop-up text. When you're learning the platform, this pop-up text is going to be really important. I'll ask you a trick question because I only ask trick questions. What's the difference between a submit and save here? I know some of you know the answer and you're being kind and not giving it to me. Really, no difference. I meant that to be provocative. I hope that's okay. Both of these are going to commit this record to the database, and if applicable, we'll email the customer. Okay? We're going to show you several buttons at the top right throughout the system. All of those buttons essentially commit the record to the database and can email the customer. We're all okay with that? So save is not a save and continue for later. It really is commit this to the database. We're all okay with that? Good. So I told you that if we have a general inquiry or other call, that the customer is not going to get notified. Correct? So that means that this customer visible description is a small lie. There are very few lies in this platform, but this is one of them. So if we log this as general inquiry or other, the customer will never see it. I hope to clarify that down the road with some more usability research. We have some designers in the room that are cringing already, but I just want to point out that little discrepancy. So if you will all click on Save for me, what this will do is commit the record and keep us right here. I like to call it a save and stay. That makes sense? A save and stay, so I know I'm going to stay on this record. Everyone able to do that? Anyone accidentally hit on submit just for fun? If you click on submit, it'll take you back to wherever you were before, and that is okay. I'm going to show you how to recover. Down in the service desk application, you see a new call, but below that you can see my calls. So every call that you have logged or created is going to be there. So if I click on my calls, I will see my most recent call, and I've been using this a lot for fun. And I can see how much time I spent with that record open, for example. So it's an interesting look at your data. And I'll go back to this other call. So we're all back here together? Great. I'm going to introduce the concept of a template. You see I can apply a template here. So often we get FAQ type of questions, or we want to have a standard format for collecting information and responding to customers, and templates are really powerful for that. You have the ability to take any form you've made and make it into a new template if you wish. That make sense? So I can go up here, and I can right-click on this orange screen, on this orange bar. Can everyone right-click on the orange bar at the top and get this hover menu up with me and look at it for a minute? It's not the best way to do your work, but you are required to do a fair number of things via this right-click menu. I'll use this opportunity to also mention that the next version of this product is going to make that much less necessary. But right now, we all have to right-click on that orange bar to do critical work. And we have to remember that. Yes. So you can do a couple really important things via that mechanism. You notice up there that the save button went away? I lost my save and stay. You can right-click and save if you wish. I can also right-click and access my templates. So under templates, I could actually take this call and save it as a template. So let's say this is a type of thing I process normally, and this description is something I want to save, and the other fields, I can actually save this as a template if I wish. You can do this for other record types as well, and if you think the templates will work for you, I'll ask that you go and experiment with that on your own. All right. I'm going to go in here and show you how to use a template. I have saved a template called my new call template, and I could either click on this icon and search, or I could just type ahead and look for it. So I know what it's called, and I can say new call for Jake because I've made it and it's visible to me. You'll see here that it's actually populating a couple pieces of information, including the description. Yeah?
Do you only have access to templates that you have created?
When you make templates, you can save them for yourself or to every member of your group. So if you have a service group and would like to use consistent templates, that's absolutely appropriate. I'll make one note, and I'll probably say this at least 3 times today, this morning, that things that are saved to a group can be accessed and edited by every group member. So just be nice to each other. If you're making templates for your colleagues, don't muck them up. Does that sound okay? Great. So I have a template I had made. I applied it. You can do this in more advanced ways as well, but I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. You can experiment with them if you feel like that would be useful for you. Okay. So right now, I talked about how I had logged it as general inquiry. After further research, I realized I want to turn this into a service request. Right? Now, just keep in mind, if you remember that schematic I showed you before, once this is turned into a service request, a request record, the customer is going to get emailed. Just like when they email UW right now, email help at you, they get a confirmation that a new ticket has been created for them. The same thing will happen right now.
So in reference to what you mentioned earlier, is there work underway to make that customer visible actually reality so that we know what's really happening?
I wish it said customer visible for a request or incident. That would be a simple fix. That sounds like great feedback. I made that, yeah. It's a small lie, but you are correct, yes. Or if you look at the status, you could say general inquiry, not customer visible, or something, some way to give feedback to our workers. You're all required to be here today, so at least everyone's heard it once, but that's very good feedback, yes. A lot of this stuff has been customized, and so it can be fixed too. Yep. All right, so let's go in here and decide we would like to make our very first request record. So again, the new calls, those can be logged separately. Once they made a request or an incident, now we have an obligation to communicate to the customer. And when this request record gets created, it's actually going to send the description out to the customer. Make sense? So if you use this application, make something here that's appropriate for the customer. The reason why I showed you this particular workflow is you could actually capture data quickly and save it as an other, and then come back to it and clean it up before you convert it to a request if you want to. So it gives you freedom to log information if you have a phone ringing off the hook. OK, so if everyone can go in there, change it to a request. I can even say, I can even edit it now. And this would be the version that gets sent out to the customer. All right. Now, you could click on Update, or you're going to do what I do. You're going to right-click and save this record. Just for a smoother experience, I'd ask for everyone to right-click and save this record. This is actually generated an email to the customer saying that a request has been opened on their behalf. Yep, I just emailed someone, but all the emails here are dead ending. That's why we want you to experiment in eval. So if you saved and stayed, it should note that this call was transferred to this request. Is everyone on the same screen with me? If you got lost, you can go back to My Calls and click on this particular call again. Just note if you do that, you'll lose this link. You can right-click on this request, or you can highlight this request here. Anyone get stuck off this record? At any time, you could also copy this request number and do a global search for it and go directly to it. Oh, you might have had a required field that was not there. Do you see any red on your page? Match not found, reset to original. You should be OK. I would just update it again, or I'll right-click and save again and see if it takes it. Yeah. A what?
I have the same error message. How you
Yeah, you might have had. Here, I'll just right-click and stay again. I think you might have had something in the template field that wasn't legal, and it kicked you out. It didn't tell me that, but it looks like it might have been. Yeah. So if you have to make sure you have valid entry points for it to be accepted. So we just right-clicked and saved, and it took it. So if you're on the screen, please click on this request, and let's follow that record. We have a new record in the system, and we're going to work it. Again, if you got lost, click on My Calls, go back to the call, and you can always see which request was actually created from your call. And so what I'm going to do is do a global search on it, and I'll end up in the same place. So we're all here on this request. Great. So we're going to get just the initial introduction to the request form right now. You'll notice that some important information has transferred over from the call, including the caller. And the assignment group for this is the UW IT Service Center. That's going to be the default. So I want to introduce some new terminology here, and that is of a configuration item and assignment group. Okay? So if everyone will click on this small icon next to configuration item. This is what is referred to as the configuration item navigator. This is going to be a list of UW IT's business services and service offerings. So for every record, we're asked to enter in a service offering to be associated with this for metrics. So if I know what I'm looking at, I can click through here and choose something that matters to me. I would ask that you go and grab something and click on something for now, and hopefully it can be something that that also means something to you. You'll notice I chose MediaAmp kind of randomly, and it automatically populated an assignment group over here that is MediaAmp. How many people watch multiple RTQs right now? So you might also be members of multiple assignment groups. So the term assignment group is a rough translation of RTQs. Okay? Now some service managers and owners have taken this opportunity to actually consolidate down or even change names. So as a team, you have to make sure that you know which assignment groups you're a member of and which service offerings you're also going to be logging things against. Make sense? Is everyone able to find something that's useful to them through that procedure? Great. I'm going to show a better way to do it. Once you learn how this system works and you know which configuration items you support. For example, I work in Catalyst, and I support that each and every day. Grades are due at 5 o'clock, for example, and I'm stressed because everyone's using Catalyst systems. Lauren knows. She's smiling nervously over there. So all I have to do is type Cata, and now I can get Catalyst. So we'll all learn a few little tricks to find our service offerings very quickly. And then the default assignment group. This is the team of people who are going to be watching these records to fulfill them, akin to the queue. That sound okay? This is the default, and this can also be changed. For example, if I want to put this request into an engineering group, I could actually type in a different assignment group, and then a different set of eyes will be on this record. That'd be a lot like moving it to a different queue. Sound okay? All right. I think the idea of moving tickets amongst queues is very evocative, and we're used to that thought. Right now, we have records, and each record has a different assignment group assigned to fulfill it. In the end, it's the same. It's just a different way of thinking about it. All right. Does everyone have a configuration item and assignment group? We're all okay? Okay. Now I'll ask you a question. What do you think is going to happen if I click on Create R Task? And remember, I only ask trick questions. If you hover over it, what does it say? Does it give you any useful information? It's supposed to. This will actually save this record. Okay? And if I were actually communicating to the customer, it would send out an email. Okay? In this instance, we're not. The customer has already received a notification saying a record has been created. Okay? So I just want to point out that we can update, resolve, create tasks, and all those will actually save this record. Okay? All right. If you guys could. Nope. Nope. There's a very clear area we have to type in order to communicate to the customer, and we'll go through that in the next round of demos. Right now, we haven't added any additional information for the customer, and they're not going to get any communication. I just want to be clear about that. You can update records without them being notified. Yeah. So I'll ask everyone to click on Update for me and see where we end up. I ended up back on the call. Did you end up back on the call as well? So it depends on where you were before. So update does not take you to a predefined place. It takes you wherever you were on the previous screen. And we're going to find out that that can be a little jarring at first, but once you get used to the system, it actually works really well. Because often, what you want to do is go back to where you were before you started working on a particular record. An update will take you back there. I just want you to know that that's the workflow. And we have to practice a little bit to get used to that. Okay. So let's do a little bit of a workshop here, and I'm going to pause to make sure that I haven't missed anything really critical. Oh, I did. That's okay. I didn't miss anything absolutely critical for then, but I'll try not to forget again. We're going to do a quick workshop, and I'm going to ask you to think about which service offerings you support. And if you guys had a chance to talk as service teams about those things already, some people, I hope. So what this demonstration or this training will also get you to do is go back as a service team and say, hey, which service offerings do we support? And how are they defined and listed in the system? That's a really important thing that we all know what we're supposed to be watching. We also need to know which assignment groups we're in. And so what I'd like to do is show you how to figure that out from the system right now. That make sense? Okay. All right. I would like for everyone to Google themselves, which is to say, go up in the very top right and click in that search bar and put in your NetID. So we can look for ourselves. I just want to point out that you can also search for any caller in this manner. So if you have a client that contacts us a bunch and has a whole bunch of records and a long history with us, it can all be obtained through the same search. What you may be seeing is something like this. Often this window is first contracted. And I'll ask you to look down in People and Places. So I searched on my NetID. When I expand People and Places, I can see my entry. Is everyone else able to do that? Everyone get stuck there? Great. I'm going to click on myself. So I clicked on my NetID. This is actually my entry. How many people currently use Daffy lookups or FYI searches to look up our clients? Some people do. This is scheduled to replace that in future releases where we get more and more information available about our callers here. For example, I can see my NetID affiliations, my Reg ID, other things like that, so I don't need to look people up via these other services. And the folks in IAM have asked me to remind you that you all need to sign your institutional access and agreement forms because everyone's seeing a lot more data than they're used to seeing right now. But you're all trusted, right? Okay. I'd like for everyone to look at this icon in the top right. This is going to toggle tabs. Okay? What ends up happening is that this system can display a ton of information. You can choose to look at it all inline and scroll forever, or you can choose to tab the information. Okay? The demos I'm going to be showing today are all in the tabbed view. So I'd ask that everyone look at tabs as well, just for clarity. But you can change that default, preference if you wish. So if you go down, you'll see that I have everything listed in tabs right here. If I were to toggle that switch, it would make it all really super long scroll. Okay? So for today, make sure when you scroll down you see it in tabbed mode. Everyone okay with that? This will affect how you view all of your records, tabs on or off, and it's a personal preference. I'll be showing you with tabs on. Okay. One of the reasons why I like this tabbed view right now, it's showing that this Jake guy has 18 incidents and 38 requests. This is me as a caller. So this is actually what we call CRM Lite. We can actually see what our customers are requesting here. I have some roles in the system, but for the purpose right now, the most important tab for you is the Groups tab. Yeah. Okay, you don't have groups? Are you in tabbed view? Otherwise, you have to scroll forever. It's really hard. Yeah, the tab is the top. Oh, shoot. Can you scroll up? Wait. You have to click on your record first. So if you could just go down to People and Places and click on your NetID, and then you can do that. So you should, yep, now you can change over to tabbed view. Yep, you can't see the tabbed view until you're in there. Do you want to search on your NetID here? Yeah, and then, just before. Okay, yeah. This is I'm going to be showing you guys critical information right now. Okay, so over here in groups, talk a little bit about groups. I have a member of several groups. So this tells me all of the groups that my service managers have put me in. Does that make sense? So this is what the system knows, and it's going to display all of the records assigned to these groups in my default filters. That make sense? So if you're not seeing a group that you expect to be in, you need to go pester your service manager and make sure they set them up properly. Is that okay? Let's click on a group. I have a group here with a bunch of people in it. There. I'll point out that if you're a service manager and you want to find out who's in these groups or edit them, this is actually showing you the entry in the UW Groups web service. How many people know and love the UW Groups web service? This is where you would go to edit the enrollment of that group. So even though I can't change anything with the system, I'm a member manager on these, and I can update who sees these records. If you scroll down, I'm not going to expose it here, but you can see I have 31 members of that group. So these 31 people all are going to have this in their list of defaults. That sound okay? So now at least you know what the system thinks you belong to, and it's your job between now and the cutover date to make sure that that reflects reality. If updates are made in Emir, they'll be synced multiple times a day, and if Emir doesn't mean anything to you, that's great. But if you're a service manager, you have to go into Emir and make sure it's accurate.
So you're saying we need to check the groups tab in the uwval.service-now.com to make sure that matches what we got in RT?
In RT? Well, no, it matches what your service groups expect. RT is not going to be the same. Many people have changed the names and changed the number of groups that they're defining. I don't understand the specification.
You need to check to make sure that the groups we have access to are appropriate for the actual business processes
Yes.
So the actual live system is going to have its groups copied from Eval?
It's already been copied from eval, and so right now any future updates will be pushed to production. So if you need to make a change, if you do that in a mirror, it will be reflected in production. Because the copy happened last Friday, that's a good distinction. The clone to production happened on Friday, and I expect future updates to be reflected in production.
So we need to check where to make sure that the groups we have access to are the right groups.
That sounds like a great thing. Yeah. Service managers have been pinged many, many times about updating a mirror and making sure everything has been done properly. So I wanted you to see at least what's currently showing right now. And again, we'll go into production at the end of this demo, at the end of our talk today. And so you can even look in there to see future updates. This is going to be stale data eventually, okay? Because everything's been cloned to production. Great. Okay, everyone okay with that? We all understand how to find our groups? That's great. I'm going to ask you now to go back over to your application navigator. You guys are doing great, by the way. Only a few more minutes and then you get a break. Click on configuration for me. Under configuration, you can also see service offerings. Okay. I want to point out this option as well, because what it does is it shows you, remember our configuration item list, that big long list of things? It shows you everything that's there. These are all of our service offerings. And it shows across here who owns and manages it. So if something's inaccurate, these folks are at fault. I like to point fingers. And if you scroll across, it also shows you that if I choose a particular configuration item, this is going to be the default group assigned to it to actually resolve that request. And if I were to escalate and make a task, this would be the default group that would be tasked or assigned to the task. That make sense? If you were to click on these, you could also, again, see immediately who are members of those groups. Question, Lauren?
What order is this listed?
I think it's alphabetical based on service offering, but you can sort it on anything you want. If you click on a column header, you can sort and filter and do all kinds of stuff. For example, if you're a service manager, I could pick on someone. How about a service owner? I like picking on Tom. I can actually right-click on Tom Lewis. You guys could do the same if you wish. This is a really fun database, I have to admit. Everywhere you see a list view like this, I can actually filter and sort. I can right-click on an element and choose Show Matching. And this is going to do an actual filter of the entire list and show me only the things that Tom owns. That make sense? So if you work for someone, you can use them as your entry point for this as well, to try to figure out which teams are on those services. So again, for today, in the interest of expediency, choose a configuration item or a service offering that works for you. And then as a team, make sure you understand all of the service offerings you'll be supporting once we cut over from our team. Everyone okay? You still with me? All right, great. We're going to talk briefly about filters and tables as well before the break. So instead of queues and searches, how many people do saved searches in RT? It's kind of fun. We can search for what we want to see. A lot of people don't even think that when you are looking at a queue, you're actually seeing essentially a saved search. Instead, we're going to be working with tables and filters in this system. Different nomenclature, but the result is the same. The defaults that you have here are going to show the records you've been assigned and all the records in your assignment groups. Okay? And when you leave here today, make sure, even if you don't know anything about databases and don't wish to learn anything, that being on the task table matters today. So for example, if you were looking at the task table, it's going to show all of the requests in the system, all of the records in the system. So all requests, incidents, problems, and task records. If you were to go to the request table, it's only going to show service requests. I see a question coming. No, okay, it's just a deep breath. For many people, it doesn't matter. If you're looking at the task table, you'll see everything. But at the end of this, when we're doing incident management, you'll notice that there's a difference. And I just want to prime you for that at the very end. Okay. And also, when you're making custom filters and doing reports, knowing about the tables is actually going to matter as well. And that's going to be more advanced usage, but I want to set everyone up to actually be advanced users here. Okay. Everyone is on. You guys all click the UW Connect logo and go back to your home page. So you see my work here. If you were to expand the My Records application, I'll make it a little more visible here. You all see this My Records application open. You can see I have my works, incident, my group's incidents, requests, all the different records in the system. Let's click on My Work. I hope everyone has at least one thing in the system. You have one record assigned to you, and that happened automatically when we created that request from the new call form. I have a lot of stuff in here. Apparently, I have a lot of things to do. Again, this is only going to show all of the things that you've been assigned in this far column. If you look at the top, you're actually seeing a filter. So when you click on this predefined filter of My Work, it's actually searching all of the data in the system. And I'd like for you to drop down this little caret. You see this little caret? You can actually build your own filter from there. Okay? So in here, it's showing all active records. And I'll point out at the top left, remember I was talking about the task table? This is really important. I'm running this filter against the task table. I'm looking for all records in the entire database. If I were to delete these elements and run this, it would just show me every single record in the database. They're not just limited to your own queues. Everyone can see everything. That makes sense? So from here, we are going to modify this filter and make something that's going to be helpful for you today. So if you could go in, make sure this caret is dropped down. I'd like for you to delete active is true. What that one does, active is true, only shows us things that are not closed. Closed records are no longer active. You can also change delete state filter. And I'll point out that right now, we have a filter that would show everything, no matter what the state, that's assigned to me. Okay? This is dynamic, puts your NetID in the field. I'd like for you to click on this center selector and change to is. Oh, wait. Yeah, is. Sorry. And I'd like you to change the first selector to updated by. Starts with this fine, too. I apologize for having you do that in the wrong order. So what this updated by one is going to show is who last updated this record. So if you do updated by and your NetID, this is going to be a database search for every record that you last updated. Starts with or is will be equivalent. You could just do the first part of your NetID, and it makes it a more flexible search if you wish. But if you put your full NetID in, they'll be equivalent. Other questions about that? Yeah, this is something you'll have to experiment with if you want to do a lot of filtering. I just want to get you started with the procedure. So I have a filter called updated by starts with my NetID. Everyone's done the same? Great. I'm going to ask you to run that. So there's a little run icon. And with any luck, all of you at least have one record returned, correct? Great. I'm going to do one more thing here. If you'll do this drop down again, I'll ask all of you to click on Save. So when I go into this menu, I can also save this filter. So I could do any slice of the data I want and save this filter for future use. So if I click on Save, I can change the name, call it Jake's Updates. Okay, and if everyone follows along, it'll be helpful. You notice that I can save it only for myself, or I can also make this custom filter visible to an entire group of people. And this is the second time I'm warning you this, though. If you share something with a group, remember, they can also edit or delete your filters. So play nicely as colleagues on your service teams. So I'm going to make this visible to me and hit save. If you do that right now, it means you can use it later on, further in the demo. And I'm going to show you also how to drag this over to your PowerEdge. So if you could all grab this last element, click on your NetID, and drag it over to the PowerEdge. So I'm going to click on my NetID and drag it over. I now have this filter bookmarked. That sound okay? Everyone able to do that? The reason why I want everyone to do that is later on, if you make a mistake and you lose your record, you could always click on this filter and find it again quickly. That makes sense? So it's just a catch-all, because we're going to get tired, you're going to be here a long time, and you might make a mistake. So we can always click on that filter and find everything you last updated. That sound okay? All right. So we made it through the creation of our first record. We understand a little bit about service offerings and assignment groups, and a little bit about filters. I'd like to take a 10-minute break, and you can ask me questions, you can complain, anything you want, and we'll meet back here at 10:05. The bathroom is down the hall, and to your right if you wish. Everyone came back? Good. That was your instruction to come back. Also, on your handout, I've got a list of notifications and what generates them. There is a little bit of confusion about customer notifications. We're going to walk through that as well now. I just want you to have something in your hand that can actually help you with that when you leave today. It's actually not that complicated, but the first time you see it, some people get a little bit mystified by it. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about service requests. We've already made one request, but let's go into it in earnest now. How many people, again, use subtickets in RT? So if you use subtickets in RT, you're going to be using request tasks, and we'll call them R tasks. If you don't use subtickets, you can safely ignore that part of the demonstration, but I'm going to show everyone how to use R tasks because you might decide that that's a good thing for you too. You can require approval on your requests. We're not going to go through that today, but if you do need to, very few people require approval on requests, formal approval, but that can be set if you wish. And right now, we are employing or deploying what is called simple request. So just basic service requests. In the future, we're going to have much more complex workflows and automation in request fulfillment. And as a reminder, all emails to help@you are going to generate a request. Sound okay? If it's determined that that request is actually an incident, I'll show you how to convert it to an incident for incident management. Everyone okay with that? Okay. Before we go in here, we've all seen the top part of a request, correct? If you were to go to request and have it come in the door, I want to point out that as you scan down, you don't have to see this, by the way. I just want to show you the workflow. We have our customer description. This is going to be what they were asking for. If you go down here, the 2 is depicting the activity log. And it's going to be an important habit for us to generate. We go down and scan the log before we start working a request, because this is going to be all the other commentary and history on the request. At the very bottom, we're going to have tabs for associated request tasks. So if you use tasks, make sure you always go down there and check to make sure if there are tasks or not. After that, we can work the record and respond to the customer. So remember, I alluded to the fact that the customer would not be communicated to in that first request we created. That's because we had not put anything in this section to communicate to the customer. Okay? We're going to plod through a request. I just want to let you know that in the real world, you would be scanning this information before plodding through and responding to a customer. Okay. If you guys could all go into your application navigator on the left-hand side and click on Service Requests. I'm going to click on Create New Request. We could go back to the new call record, but in this instance, we're just going to create a request or the new call form. Okay, everyone have this up with me? Great. So now, after we've got some exposure to configuration items, we can enter in one that matters to us. I'm going to type in Cata because that will do Catalyst. It's my old standby. And it's going to populate an assignment group that I'm a member of. I'm going to do a demo for you, and I'll ask that you watch and not follow along right now. So hands off the keyboards. Yep, back. Great. I want to show the CI class category. This is only going to apply to a select few people. This is a scoping mechanism that defines what can be seen. So, for example, if you wanted to log something against hardware or a server, I could change it to all. And if I type CA, for example, I'm getting a long list of servers. So I could actually log records against hardware if I wish. Most people don't do that. That's why I'm asking you to do this hands off. If I were to change it back to service and do CA, it's only going to show a list of services, and Catalyst is one of them. Does that make sense? The default is service. That's what the majority of us will do. Okay. I also want to show you that this is nice. I actually have a little red dot here. It might be difficult for you to see. If you run into something like that, I always just delete, back out, and type again, and I'll survive. I'm going to show you one other thing. If you do wired services, I'm going to type in, or networking, I'm going to choose wired, and an additional option pops up, and that's for sector information. This doesn't apply to most of you, so if you don't deal with sectors, you can just close your ears, you're fine. But you can then have an optional selector field. Well, it's required if you're doing that. And this would then apply custom signatures for communication to that customer base. It doesn't apply to most of you. That's why I don't want you to follow along unless that does apply. Sound okay? Okay, good, thank you. Phew, I just had to get through that part. So I'm going to go back, use a service I know, and move forward. All right, let's go down the list here, and let's talk a little bit about impact and urgency. So we're all being asked to use these fields in order to calculate the priority for our requests and incidents. So let's have an example. We have a single customer, so maybe a low impact, but it's a VIP. Imagine a VIP in your life. You could then change it to high urgency, and this will then calculate a priority. If you have a long list of requests to fulfill, you could use that calculated priority to figure out which ones to address first. Make sense? If you have any questions about the definitions of any of these fields, we have little question mark icons. So that's going to be very up-to-date and sometimes not even done yet. It's up-to-date documentation on what those different things are. So you have a lot to learn. But by and large, these are pretty easy to figure out. We're all being asked to calculate priority here. You scroll down, you see that I could also have templates to apply to requests. Just keep in mind that if I make a template for the new call form, I can only use it on calls. If I make a template for requests, I can only use them on requests. That make sense? So you are limited to that. Let's go down to short description. You'll notice it's required. I'm going to say, help me log in. And for my own sanity, I'm going to note that this is the subject line of an email. So if someone emails us a request, the subject line of the email will be here in the short description. Up at the top right, since we're making a new request, I have to populate the caller. Again, that would be auto-populated if they emailed us. I'll pick on this same person, my Yahoo email. And let's take a look at this assigned to field. We didn't have to mess with this when we did the new call because it automatically assigned us. But in this instance, if I were to save this record, it would show up in this assignment group's list of work for someone to work it, right? Kind of like having something show up in your queue and someone needs to take it. For all of our demos and for all of your practice, I recommend that you assign things to yourself so you can find them and work them, okay? So you could type in this field and look for yourself or look for a person. The better thing to do is to click on this little person icon and add me to this record. Everyone able to do that? If you forget to add yourself to any of these records as we're making them today, you might lose them because you're going to try to find them and you're learning the system. You can always go back to your fancy filter and find these records because you were the last person to update them. That's why I have this filter here for you. Well, I didn't put that. You had that filter there for you to do that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about watch list and work notes list. There's hover text, which also helps you learn what these are. how many people use CC in RT? So that would be akin to this watch list. So the caller is going to get all the communication, and anyone added to this watch list here will also get the customer visible communication. I can click on this little lock mechanism to add additional people if I want to add CCs. The lock seems odd. The lock is what you click to edit. I don't know. It's a bad icon. I didn't design it. The work notes list. How many people use admin CC in RT? I love admin CC. I use it a lot in RT. This is going to show you the internal communication. So anyone added to the work notes list is going to get emailed notifications whenever there are any updates to this record, either the work notes or customer visible communication. Sound okay? All right. There's a small icon down here for audit completed. If you're in one of those groups that audits all your work, you could go through and see the disposition of it and check that box if you wish. But most people don't do that. I just want to point out it's there. Phew. Let's move down to the description. I'm going to type in, help me, I deleted all my stuff.
Got one question.
Yeah.
Notice that the due date doesn't show as a mandatory.
Yep, due date is not mandatory.
So how are you tracking? Well, sorry, it's a process.
So, yeah, it's a process question. I appreciate the sensitivity there. A lot of requests come in, and it's just something we have to answer, general inquiry. If you do want to use due dates for your process, you can put it on there and attach it, but you would have to have your service teams do it. It's not required. Most of my requests don't have a due date. It's mainly best effort or ASAP. So that's a field you can use if you wish, but yeah, that's optional. So help, I deleted everything, and I'm going to put in here, just for my own sanity again, body of email. So envision here, oops, I'm messing up my scroll. Envision here, I've got a record that came in. This is the subject line of their email, and this is what the customer has reported to me. An email to help@uw.edu. Sound okay? Great. Okay, I'm going to pause, and we're going to talk a little bit more about save, submit, create, and resolve. I just want to note that we're making a record from scratch. And I'll say it again, the customer is going to get emailed whenever a record is created from scratch, whenever a request or incident is made on their behalf. If they email us, they will get notification saying a request has been made. Okay? In this instance, since we're making it from scratch, when I submit this to the database, it's going to generate an email. And the customer would get emailed out this description upon initial insertion into the database. That sound okay? This isn't a very realistic scenario, I agree, because a lot of stuff comes in as email. I just want to point that out right now. So if you guys could all go in, add something to the description, right-click on your gold bar. You can see Save, and Save is also available the first time you insert something. So you can either right-click and save or just click on Save. Yeah? Yep, it's going to have red if you're not a member of that assignment group. So if you need to add someone who's not a member of the assignment group, you'd have to delete the group and add yourself. Or the Add Me button always works. So don't type your name. I would click on the person icon and add yourself to it.
So when I do that, that worked. So I had a red.
Yeah.
And then when I went to save it, it lost them.
Yeah, so you have to make sure you go back and find it. So if you're not a member of that assignment group, you're going to get red, and you can't commit it to the database if you have an error pending. If you have those red dashes, it's going to not commit it. Yeah. Okay, good. So you can always, are we okay? You can always go into any record and add yourself to it, essentially like taking something in RT. That sound okay? All right. We have a record in the database. We have a request, and let's work it. That sounds a little odd, but that's okay. I want to point out that I can use knowledge to resolve and respond to requests. In here, there's a little book icon to the far right of the description, and it's search knowledge. What this is going to do, it's going to perform a knowledge search for me based on the short description. So if you guys could all click on search knowledge, you're going to find often that the short description might have too much information in it. So it's going to auto-populate that search in here, so I can actually modify that to do something more useful. So for example, I might need to say, oh, this is a Catalyst issue. I'll do a Catalyst search. So I can always modify that. I just want to point out that the subject line auto-populates. I could click on here and actually find a knowledge article. And again, RTFM has been imported, and a whole bunch of other resources have been reported for us or imported for us to use. So I'm going to click on an element. It doesn't really matter which one. And I can see this would be my knowledge that I can use to resolve this and help the customer. Sound okay? There are two ways to use knowledge. One is simply to copy it. So I can just do a copy and go back and paste it in. That's what I would recommend. Okay? So if you could have a really long knowledge article that has a lot of different scenarios, you can just grab the snippet of what you need to use to respond to the customer. The alternative is to click on Attach to Request. If you click on Attach to Request, it's going to push the entire contents of the article into the response to the customer. Okay? So I'll advise that you experiment with that in eval to see what happens with your knowledge articles. That make sense? Great. I'm going to click on Attach to Request just to show you what happens here. And if I go down, I've populated my knowledge article down here in the notes section. You can see I even have some HTML code. If you don't like that, I recommend that you do the copy and paste mechanism. Is that okay? Everyone able to find some knowledge and throw it in there?
So just be sure the client would see all that HTML.
Yeah, if you, well, they'll see the rendered HTML. So that's why I want you to experiment. So if your knowledge articles have been cleaned up and they look really nice when you send them out, that's great. Most people haven't gone through and cleaned up their knowledge just yet, so that's why I'm cautioning you to copy and paste as necessary. Knowledge is still in development, but we have a lot of information at least available to us so we can use it. That's the important thing. I'm going to leave this HTML in here so that when I send this out to the customer, you can actually see it today. The other question? No, just a general wave. Okay, so let's go down here. I want to point out our description is customer visible, as well as these additional comments. So today, the most important thing for you to learn is that if there's any text down in the additional comment section and you update the record, it's going to email the customer. If you forget everything else you've learned today, you'll still survive if you remember that. Okay? Anything down here will be emailed to the customer with an update. Okay. Now, I'm also telling you that the description is customer visible. An edit to the description will not trigger an update. Okay? So you can edit the description all you want. That's not going to trigger an email to the customer. But whenever you email the customer, a copy of this will be sent. Does that make sense? So, has anyone ever received a long rambling request that's somewhat inaccurate or maybe factually incorrect? You have the ability to actually edit the original description if you wish. And that's an effort to be a little more transparent with our customers. Just keep in mind they can see whatever we put in there, and that will go out with the emails when they go out. Is that okay?
But again, changing the description
Won't itself.
changing the notes.
Yes. Adding customer visible notes will trigger an email. The description then goes with it. And we're going to see a formatted email today so you can see what happens, of course. The short description is going to be the subject line. Yep. So, yeah. Well, yeah. When we're also going to see a picture of the portal. One interesting caveat there is that if I change the description and commit it, and the customer is actually looking at the portal, they can see the most current version of the customer description. Does that make sense? So even if they didn't get an email and we update the description, they're going to see their service status in the portal. And the description actually can be edited, and it's immediately visible if you have a saved description. That make sense? Yeah, this is something remember the early slide about improved transparency with our customers? That's part of it. So on our portal, they'll get this. With every communication from us, they're going to get a link back to the portal so they can see the current status of their request. So if they're sitting there at their computer clicking refresh all the time, they could actually see the most recent version of your description. Okay. Let's scroll down a little bit here. And let's take a look at work notes. And I'll also acknowledge here, anyone have a concern with calling this comments? what are comments in RT? Comments are hidden from the customer. So don't be that first person that sends out your comments to a customer. Additional comments are what we're using to communicate to the customer, and that's really important to convey. Down here in work notes, this is going to be our internal communication. So, needed to reset password. Something like that, whatever. This would be my internal notes. So right now, I'm actually prepared to communicate to the customer. I've got an RTFM article in there to send to the customer, and I've got some work notes logged. I'm going to want to right-click and save. I want to save and stay on this to see what happened. In the real world, I might want to set the status to resolved, I answered the question, and just hit submit and go back to my work. But in this scenario, just so we can follow along together, I'm going to right-click and save. Right-click on the gold bar and save. You'll notice that my comments and notes were scrubbed. They're pushed to the log. I now have the ability to come in here and comment again to the customer. If you all would scroll down to the activity log, you can see the original description. And as I go in, this is when I initially saved it. If I scroll up, I can see the formatted email sent to the customer. Right? That's the email. If you click on this little plus button, this will show you the generic email customers will get, the description of their request, and this would be the link to go back to our portal and check on the status of their request. Yeah.
But if you would like to add additional people to enter more
If you do the
email addresses.
Yeah, you can add additional email addresses. This went out to a single person, the caller. If you added additional people on the watch list here, all of those people will get all of the customer communication. That's how you add additional email addresses there. If you want to have additional people getting also the work notes, though, all the customer communication and the work notes, you'd add them to the work notes list. Okay. So in this instance, I only send it out to a single customer or caller. You'll notice I use the term caller and customer interchangeably. I apologize. It's just kind of baked into my brain. I can't fix it. Okay, this was our initial communication when the record was created. Up here, I can see in this particular yellow color, if you can even see that I have my work notes. And then you can see here the formatted output from the knowledge base. So I wanted to show you that HTML code was rendered properly. So if you practice with this and find that your articles work fine, that's great. Or you can copy and paste and just use the text. Is that okay? You trust me on this one? Great. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about request state. We have a few new states to learn. And again, if you forget, that's quite all right. There's a little question mark button that shows you what each state means. So I'm just going to pop this up here and show you. If I can be patient. There we go. So we have a new status of awaiting user info. How many people have actually asked the customer for information and had something stalled for weeks or months? Or yeah. So if you put something in, if you ask the customer for information and you put the request in this status, they will have 5 business days to get back to us. If they don't, they're going to get an automated reminder saying, hey, we're expecting a follow-up from you. After an additional 5 business days of no response, their request will actually be closed out.
Are they told that it's closed?
They will get a final notice. Yep, it's been closed. You know, open up a new request. I haven't seen the formatted email yet. I hope it's kind. So just keep that in mind. If you want to use this workflow, if you're asking for someone for information, they don't want to get back to us, we can put it into that automated workflow. They'll get a reminder in 5 days, 5 business days, and then have it closed after 10 total business days. Just make sure that that fits your customer and your customer's temperament before you do that. So I want to point that out. Internal review allows you to do a little bit of investigation before assigning it. That's primarily for the service center. I'm going to go down here to resolved. So when you put something in a resolved state and you submit your response to the customer, they have 3 business days to object. After 3 business days, the request or an incident, whichever record, automatically moves to a closed state. So within 3 days, they can reopen it, and we can respond again. But if they don't, it moves into the closed state. So they are emailed when we resolve things. If they don't come back to us, it'll automatically be moved to a closed state, and they won't be emailed about that. If they try to respond while it is closed, they're going to have to open up a new request with us. Okay? Now that you understand this workflow, you might understand now why we have a delivered status. So if you want to mark something as delivered, this would be a visual indication to you that you've given them what they need, but you're waiting for a little more communication for verification that it's actually delivered as they wish. Then you can move it to a resolved state, and it'll go through the automated workflow. Does that make sense? Great.
Is there already an automated timer on that delivered?
Nope. Delivered, it can be there as long as you need. So you might say, oh, that sounds like a better way, depending on your customer, right? So that's great. Another note, after something moves to the closed state, a subset of our customers will be given a survey. I don't know the actual number, but we're going to have customer satisfaction surveys going out after things moved to the closed state. At the very bottom here, it says stalled. Stalled is a specific meaning here, meaning that something is planned and doesn't require any further action. Okay? So it's different from the stalled that we're used to. So I'd encourage you to come through here and take a look at these statuses. So if we respond to the customer and wish to close this request out, we can mark it resolved. And then after 3 business days, it'll automatically move to closed. Everyone okay with that workflow? When we talk about incident, we'll see a few new options, but by and large, the logic for resolved, closed will be the same. Okay, so I'm going to go in here, say state is resolved, and I can actually close this record out. I would like to go through a brief request task for escalation. So again, a show of hands of people use subtickets. So if you use subtickets, you're going to follow along. If you don't wish to use this, you can just watch. That's fine. You don't have to follow. But I encourage everyone to try it out and see if it makes sense to you. So in this particular scenario, I'm managing a request, but I need to ask an engineer for help. I need something specific from a different fulfillment group. So what I'm going to do is I want to click on Create Our Task. Again, one caution when doing this. If you have comments to the customer down here, when you click on these buttons, that will be sent out at the same time. Does that make sense? So the better workflow is to communicate to the customer and make sure there's no comments here, and then start creating tasks off of this record. I just want to acknowledge that. Now, if you're really good with this and you know exactly what you're doing, you could write off your reply to a customer, pop up and click Create Our Task, and that's just fine, as long as you know that this is going to be sent out. Okay, good. Let's click on Create Our Task. A bunch of information is copied over from the request. You can actually see it says Our Task here, so we know that it's not an actual request, it's a request task. You can see the short description is copied over. And over here we have an assignment group. So I just want to point out that for some people, the default assignment group is going to be the same. But by default, remember when I showed you your groups before? We saw a fulfillment group and a support group for every service. If you make a task, it's going to be the support group that's populated over here. The assumption is it's going to be an engineering group or a tier 2 group that's going to be fulfilling the tasks associated with this. This can be changed, though. So much like assigning a subticket to a particular queue, I can delete that and put it wherever I want, whichever group is going to fulfill this task. I'll not put in garbage there because that's a bad idea, but you know what I mean. I could also assign it to myself, right here if I wish. And that way I can find it and work it. Or I could assign an individual member of this group to fulfill that task. I could have as many tasks as I want associated to a request. Everyone okay with that? Great. I'm going to say, please do X, Y, and Z. And I'm going to save and stay. So I'm going to right-click on this request task, and I'm going to click on Save. Okay, a little bit about communication here. Request tasks and incident tasks have been designed to work like subtickets. So if I were to communicate down here in the work notes, it's going to communicate up to the parent request and also communicate with all other request tasks on that request. Does that make sense? So it's pretty chatty by default. If I have 4 open request tasks and someone enters work notes on one, it'll propagate to all the other 3 as well as the parent. So they talk to each other. Make sense? If you enter work notes on the parent, it also propagates down to the tasks. So it's actually a great way to communicate if you have multiple tasks in different groups. So I advise you to experiment with that if you're going to use it. I'm told...
Doing stuff in the description will not email the client via the parent.
Actually, the most important thing is nothing from a task can email the client. So it's also a very safe way to have out subtickets that do not get back to the client. So the description here is going to stay in the request task. You actually type in the work notes to communicate back up to the parent, to the request itself, and to other request tasks.
So does that mean that request tasks do not have comments in them?
There are no comments. It's all work notes, and we're all talking to each other. We're all equals on the tasks. Yep. You don't see the customer visible anywhere here, so you're only communicating internally from request tasks.
Does that mean comments are only on requests, or are there other kind of records beside requests that have comments?
Sorry, the customer visible comments?
Well, all comments are customer visible.
Yes, customer visible comments are present on requests and incidents. Yes, and requests and incidents function very similar. So we're going to talk about the commonalities when we go through incident management.
But only at the record level.
At the record level, yes. So you have to be in the incident or request record to communicate to the customer, not from the tasks, the R tasks or the I tasks, as you'll see soon. So this is a safe way to assign work to other members of Udemy IT staff, and then you can communicate back to the parent record. Everyone okay with that?
You said customer visible comments. All comments are customer visible. There's no comment.
Yeah,
Which is not.
this is true. If I use the term comment is only for the customer visible section, yeah. These work notes are not comments. They're work notes that will communicate back to the parent record. So I'd like to show you how that functions. One quick thing here. We do have time worked. If you wish to use this, you can actually enter your time worked, and it'll actually be cumulative over here if you want to play with that. You can also stop the timer. I do not envision using this in any way, shape, or form. I want you to know it's there in case you want to have a track of how much time you work on things. It's totally up to you. I also just want to note that the entire activity log of the parent record gets pushed out to the task, all the tasks that are made, so you can see that when you're working your task. So you have some context for the request itself. Okay, I'm going to say update for the service desk, and I can actually set the state of this to close complete. There are a couple different options in here. If I want the service desk to know that I'm working on it, I can set the state to work in progress so they know, yeah, I'm on it. And when I'm done with the work, I can update my notes and choose close complete. That sound okay? It's a pretty simple request scenario. Just want you to see it. Not everyone uses subtickets, but I want you to know it's there. All right. Here's a place where clicking on update does what you want it to do. When I update this, it's going to take me back to the parent record, to the request record itself. That sound okay? So I want you to see that if the demo, if I communicate via the work notes, you'll communicate that back to the parent. Everyone okay to hit update now? Phew. I'm back in the request itself. You'll notice that there's no visual indication that I've received any communication via the request task, correct? So here's where, when you're working in an existing record, we have to be in the habit of going down to our log and looking for communication. So if we scroll down, into the activity log of this request, I can see communication via the request task. That make sense? So all of them will roll up in this fashion, and this is where I'll look. You can imagine that your activity log might get long on really complex requests. If you could all look at activity with me. By default, your activity button looks like this, if I'm not mistaken. Do you guys all find activity below your notes section? If you double-click on those chevrons, you see I can actually sort on the type of activity I'd like to see. That's useful if you have a super long activity log. I just want to note that these preferences are going to span all of your records. So if you mess around with this and you go into a different record, it's only going to show you those particular types of activity. So while you're learning the system, I recommend that you keep all the activity displayed. That sound okay? You don't want to lose information in there. If I were to drill down and look for certain types of activity, when I'm done, I'll reselect all so I don't forget. That sound okay? Again, if you're concerned, just leave it all exposed. All right. So let's scroll down to the very bottom. I can see the activity. At the very bottom here, and again, I'm in tabbed view. If you're not in tabbed view, you have to scroll around and look a little bit, but tabbed view works better for me. If you look, you can see request tasks. It tells me how many tasks are associated with this request. I can see I have one there. And it shows me the status of that. Here it says close complete. So if I had a request with multiple tasks, I could follow up on them right here. That sound okay? We're ready to resolve. Just note, you can't resolve a request that has open tasks. That makes sense? So if I have tasks that are still pending out there, all those have to be finished before I can resolve the parent request. I'm going to show you a little trick. You could say, well, Jake, I've got a list of 10 tasks, and we're going to skip all of them. This request has been canceled. How do I survive? This is really odious. If you guys all want to watch along, I'm going to do a quick demo for you of something that's kind of fun. I'm going to click Create R Task and go back. I'm going to click Create R Task and go back. I'm going to scroll all the way down. And you'll notice I have 3 total tasks associated with this request. 2 of them are open. Can you guys see that in the back? Sorry. At the very bottom of my list here, it shows that I have open tasks. If I could actually get this darn thing to move up, I would. Huh. You're not playing nicely, are you? Well, anyhow, you have to trust me. I can actually do a multiple update on those tasks. This is a list view of the database. And I'm going to give you guys a superpower. If I hold Windows Shift, I can actually drag across multiple things, double-click, and update them both. I'm going to show you how to do this again later in a different context. But I can actually change the status of both of these to closed, skipped, and commit it to the database. So I can actually change these fields from this list view and interact with them and not have to go into each request task and set them to closed individually. That make sense? No? Okay, you're honest. That's fine. One more time? Absolutely. Yeah. I'll do this from a different list so you can practice with me. But the Windows Shift key allows you to drag across multiple cells and do a multiple update. And I'll show you how to do that again in a different view so you can practice with it. It's just a trick. You can also update one at a time. But if you want to update multiple things at once, it's a nice trick. You can't cancel the parent request. It's going to have to be marked resolved. No, it doesn't cascade. So you have to close out the request tasks, and then you can resolve the parent. And that's why if you have multiple request tasks, learning the multiple update is a useful skill if you're in that scenario. And if you're looking at a list of a lot of tasks you have to close, you'll figure out the Shift key, the actual trick quickly because you're going to want to do it fast. I don't want to belabor that because many people aren't going to use request tasks. I just want to point that out. All right. You guys are troopers. Let's move on here. I'm going to resolve this request. Everyone okay with that? Great. So I can't just resolve it. Just want to point out that whenever we move a request to the resolved state, we have to communicate with the customer. We're going to email them. Right now in RT, we can do a quiet close or a silent close, right? We're used to that. In the future, we cannot do that. We have to go in and add in additional comments for the customer. Hi, now complete. Complete with misspellings. So I clicked on resolve. I've got additional comments that are customer visible. You all see this little green button here, this little green light? That's also a visual indicator that this is going to be updated. I have additional comments to the customer. When I resolve this, they're going to be emailed. You'll also notice that I have a little red button by closure information. We have to toggle over and put in a closed code. So the code could also be incomplete or canceled. And that's for internal metrics to know. I'll choose complete. I have optional notes if I wish. They're not required. And a couple other things that are useful. You can see that I have other database information opened by me, last updated by me, and closed. This will also be populated by me. So I can also go into the system and query everything I've closed, for example. So I can get a lot of metrics out. All right, you guys all ready to click update? Yeah. It goes into the resolve state. After 3 days, it moves to closed. And after you don't have to do that. It's automatic. It cannot be moved out of the closed state, though. While it's in the resolve state, you can actually move it back to active. You can change the status. We can, and the customer can also reply and open it back up or move it back to active. So again, practice with that a little bit. It's important. OK, I could click on update or resolve. Phew, we just worked a request. Is everyone OK with that? Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about incident. Incident is going to be very similar to request. A lot of the functionality is designed to mirror it. And again, you'd only choose incident if it's that type of outage. Something's broken, that customer request would be then clarified and called an incident. And I'll show you how to do that. You can, again, add tasks, just like in request. We're not going to talk a lot about that. We're going to go through it quickly because you've already done that in request. I want to demo how to use the on-call system. How many people get paged when something breaks? Maybe in the middle of the night. So you're going to need to know how the on-call system works. I'll do a brief demo for everyone. And then I'll just notify here that if you have SolarWinds or Dash, they can automatically generate incidents. So when those pop out error alerts, you're going to have incidents show up in your assignment groups automatically. And then after the break, so I'll give you a break before this next one, we're going to talk a little bit about parent incidents and an additional functionality you can have there. The beauty of parent incidents is they can communicate out to multiple clients at once. So that scenario will be a big outage, a bunch of customers impacted, and the incident manager wants to communicate to a lot of clients at one time. We'll look at that as a separate scenario. Okay? All right. I would like everyone to click on UW Connect. And do you all see a request in your My Work? So if you just resolved a request, it's no longer going to show up there, correct? And I want to point out that best practice now, from here on out, is when anything is resolved, you're no longer assigned that record. Your name gets scrubbed from the assigned to field. That make sense? And that's very much purpose-built. We don't want people to retain assignment. Let's say you resolve something and go on vacation. We don't want it to come back in your work. We want it to come back to the assignment group. That make sense? Any sense? OK, great. So I just want to point that out, that if you resolve that request, it should no longer show up in your My Work, and that's by design. If you guys want to watch 1 second, I'd like to demonstrate something for you. Now that we're talking about incident, if you had a request that came into your assignment group, you're looking at it here and say, oh yeah, that's an outage. That needs to be handled as an incident. It can be quickly converted to an incident. Do you remember our absolutely necessary right click? At the top of this form, if you right click, you can convert this to an incident. So if I were to convert to incident, it's actually going to close out that request record and create an incident record for me to work. It's pretty quick. The customer does not get an email, and frankly, the customer doesn't care. Do they care if we call it a request or an incident? It just matters for incident management that we call it an incident. So again, everything by default is going to come in as a request, and if you want to handle it as an incident, if your team prefers that, you can right-click and convert it to an incident. That sound okay? Great.
What about the tasks? Are they retained or are they closed out?
So on this particular record, the tasks, that's a great question. If you had, I've never done it that way. I've always just taken a request and converted it to an incident before creating tasks.
Okay, so I did one. It doesn't look like it.
They didn't automatically convert to iTasks? Yeah. So in terms of the process, though, it is important that when something comes in the door, you convert it to an incident and then start working it. And the tasks obviously are not retained then. Good. Thank you for experimenting for me. I do recall this came up before because someone asked, I have a whole bunch of request tasks. Is there a quick way to make those into incident tasks? And the answer is no.
You have to do it
One by one. You'd have to create new incident tasks. Yeah. So if you're going to work it as an incident, make sure that's part of your process to convert it over. Great. Okay, so let's make an incident and work it a little bit here. I would like for everyone to go into your application navigator over here. Click on the incident application, and we're going to create new. Does everyone see create new under incident? Again, this could be a converted request, or we're just going to start from scratch. This is getting a little bit repetitive for you, so now you know exactly what to do. I'll put in a configuration item. While we're in incident, I'm only going to show you things that are different, and I'll just highlight the behaviors that are slightly different between incident and request. One thing to note, the assignment group over here does not auto-populate. If you're making a new incident and you don't put in the assignment group, it's going to default to the service center. That make sense? So if there's an outage or an incident and you don't put it in an assignment group, the service center will actually manage that incident. For this purpose, we're going to put in our own assignment group, and we're going to manage our incident ourselves. Are we okay with that? We'll put in a caller and a short description. Help, I need escalation. Obviously, we can add a lot more fields, but for this demo, we don't need to do much more than that. Does anyone have?
So should adding a configuration item automatically?
It doesn't auto-populate for incident.
It does not.
It does not. That was our process owner decided not to. So, but the upside is, if you get a request in your assignment group and you convert it to an incident, your assignment group will still be there. That makes sense? So most people aren't going to make new incidents in this regard. Only if you get a phone call, you have to make a new incident from scratch, would you actually have to go through this. Again, if you convert it, the assignment group will be retained. So it doesn't impact you too much. Great clarification, though. Thanks, Tom. I would like for everyone to put in the required information and click on Save. We have a little bit of new information for you here. One is the major incident button. Anyone ever worked a major incident? I don't. I hope none of you have to. Some people do, yeah. This doesn't do anything. It just classifies it as a major incident. So if you've contacted the duty manager and this is a major incident, you can check that box, but it doesn't have any workflow behind it. Doesn't set off any alarms. Okay? Only do this if you actually know what a major incident is and you know that this has been classified as a major incident. So let's not play with that one. All right. I could work this record just like any other, and I could resolve it as well. Okay? I'm going to point out that we have a new workflow, if you wish, and that's the ability to contact people who are on call. Okay? So we're going to click on Create iTask at the top. This is going to be very similar to Request Task, but there's going to be a slight different operation. We could create a task for an engineer. It could be in their assignment group like a sub-ticket, correct? And they could resolve it just like any other. We have a new option, though, and that's Contact on Call. So if you really need immediate help, you need to page someone either the middle of the day or the middle of the night. One thing I'm going to caution, even though we're in eval, this is live. So if you don't use on-call, don't practice with this. And please don't choose some random on-call group for testing because you're going to wake someone up. Okay, so I just want to be very clear about that. Thank you. It does work. I've verified it. But the reason why it works is people need to test this. They need to make sure that the paging system is going to work when they go live. So I'll just do a brief demo of that functionality. I'm going to click on Contact on-call. I can either contact a group of people, and this would go through the rotation and start pinging people via their on-call mechanism, or I can contact a user. The funny thing is, my group doesn't currently use on-call, but I'm often away from the office. I'm actually thinking it'd be really useful if I could allow my Tier 1 folks to page me if there's actually an emergency via this mechanism. So even though I don't normally do on-call, I don't want them to do it in the middle of the night, but I'm going to try to use this within my service team. I think it's going to be really interesting functionality. So I can choose Contact a User, and I could search for myself, right? So I'm going to...
So just to clarify, so user is not customer.
No, in this instance, we're talking about an engineer, someone who has their on-call preferences set up. I can set up the system to text me an SMS whenever I'm paged. And so if I have someone who needs me to back at the office immediately or to do something really quick, they can actually text me.
Is that setting done individually? Or?
Individually, yes. We all have a personal on-call, though. And so if you want to use it, you have to set up your notification preferences to take advantage of that. Again, if you don't do it, you won't get paged. Just want to point out there's a really interesting option. So you could either choose a group if you wish it to go through the on-call rotation and page whoever's on tap. You know, if it's someone's turn to be woken up in the middle of the night, you would contact a group. If you want to contact a person, you can do that.
This may be a segue. If somebody doesn't respond, is there an escalation?
So the user, no, right? But if it's a group, the on-call rotations actually have that logic built in. So if you don't respond in a certain amount of time, it kicks the next person and they get woken up. And I can't teach that full system right now. For groups that use on-call, it's going to follow the logic, and all of their rotations have been imported into the system. Future updates to the on-call rotations, though, will be made in production. And if that all sounds foreign to you, that's just fine. But those who get called in the middle of the night need to make sure they understand how to change it.
So, I listed a group. Is there a way to see who's in that group?
You can actually you can go find the group and see the membership as well, yeah.
But not from the contact group that presents the list.
No, I haven't tried to find the on-call groups separately. I'm certain they have a role in the system. So if you were to search on that group, you could click on it and see the membership.
Right.
So everything, yeah, you can cross-reference it if you want, yeah. Yep. And just be careful. You could type in any group you want here. You're not limited. So please don't demo that. Don't page someone. So I'm just going to set myself. And it's also set to active, contact, and escalating. Okay? So I want to point out that these two required fields, escalating and active contact, have been activated by doing that. Okay? So if I were to update this incident task, I should get paged. Actually, I turned that off on my phone because I didn't want to do that. But I want to point, I've tested it before and I know it works. That sound okay? Great. So I'm going to click on Update. Does everyone have a task made? Okay, so you don't have to activate on-call. You have a task made. I want to point out one other important difference between, wait, yep, this is all okay, good. I'm going to click on Update and go back. Please go back. Yeah, I'm back now, good. Is everyone back on the parent incident? Okay. Before I let you take a break, I'm going to point out one important difference between incident and request. If you look at the states within incident, I have a couple new options. And if you want to learn more, you can click on the question mark. The two that matter the most are awaiting tier 2 and awaiting vendor. Okay? These two states are important because they can respond to a change in task status. That makes sense? I want to belabor that point. I'm going to set this incident to awaiting tier 2. In this particular scenario, I want to know when the engineer that's on call, that's being contacted, responds, and it will actually toggle the status of my incident back to active. That make sense? I'm going to demo how that works right now so you can see it. I have set the incident to awaiting tier 2. Imagine I'm sitting at a help desk. I'm waiting to hear back from the engineer that's been tasked, and I'm watching my screen. So I can save this. Okay. And I'm going to go back to my work. 14119, active. Wait, where's my waiting tier 2? Here, let's go back. Everything I updated. I want to make sure I didn't screw up. I want to point out that when you look at the incident on the incident list, it's awaiting tier 2. I screwed up. I didn't assign it to me. Did you guys see that? I made a small mistake. I am certainly imperfect. Remember how I told you to make sure everything is assigned to you today? I didn't follow my own advice. So I'm going to make sure I'm assigned to that and update.
So shouldn't that be a mandatory field then?
No, actually, because it could be just in a group. It could be an unassigned record in an assignment group, and anyone can take it. Does that make sense? Kind of like an unknown ticket in a queue in RT. Yeah. It's not required that someone take a ticket in RT. Same thing happens here.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back now to my work and pretend I'm a tier 1 agent looking at everything. And I can see these are active incidents I can work. And I'm awaiting a response from an engineer here. That makes sense? So I'm going to, I just got paged. I'll pretend I got paged. And I'm going to respond to my task as an engineer now. So I'll go in here and go to my task and find my iTask. And when I get paged, it's actually going to tell me the iTask number and the information I need to get to that task. Okay, I can now see, here I am, that on-call has been activated. I've been woken up or called out from a meeting. I can now acknowledge this and click Stop On-Call. And I've now changed the state of my task. Okay? I can say in my work notes, yep, I fixed it. It's the middle of the night, so I can't type in this demo. And I can update this. That makes sense? So it's going to communicate back to the parent incident. It's going to stop the paging system. And if I had a team that was going through rotation, I would need to acknowledge this before the next person gets pinged as well. Everyone okay with that?
So when you clicked on the on-call, it auto-generated the task?
When I clicked on Create iTask. You can make an iTask that doesn't do on-call. It can just be a task. During normal business hours, you could assign a task to an engineer. But if you want to activate on-call, you would do that from the task itself. Yep. Great clarification. So just wanted to point out an important piece of functionality here. Any updates to a task is going to toggle the status of the parent incident back to active. This is going to be an indication to my Tier 1 help desk person that there's been an update from an engineer, and they should go check on it before communicating with the client. Is that okay?
How long is the amount of time for the escalation to the next?
I have no idea. It depends on the rotation and how it's built.
Okay, so it's up to
Yeah, it's up to the group to manage their own rotations and vacation schedules and stuff like that. Again, very few people are actually doing this, but I want to make sure everyone knows how to do it if you want to try this in the future as well. My group's being asked to go to 24/7 support. I need to figure out how to do that, and I don't want to get called in the middle of the night, but that's life. Okay, I'm going to click on Update and go back. You'll notice then on the parent incident, the state's active. I can go to the very bottom and see the incident task down here. The engineer forgot to close it, so I could actually close it out if I wish, and I could resolve this incident. Is everyone okay with that? A lot of the functionality is similar, just the ability to do on-call and the ability to toggle the status of the parent incident based on an update from a task. Those are the two major differences that you've seen so far. Everyone okay with that? All right, you're doing great. We're going to take another break before we do the parent incident scenario. Can we come back in 7 minutes? Is that okay if I shorten your break? You guys hate me for that? We come back at 11:15 and we'll resume and then just power through the last 45 minutes. Okay. Okay, we're back. So we're going to talk about one more incident scenario. And we're going to set up a scenario for you here. Let's imagine we have an outage, a network outage, and records are streaming in, right? Clients are saying, help, I need access, the internets aren't working, something like that. We're going to make a simplified scenario, but you can imagine this being a big deal. I'm going to go to the incident application and select Create New. And I also want to acknowledge that if you're really fatigued right now, you can just watch. But if you ever think that you may handle multiple records at a time and need to communicate out to a lot of clients, it's critical that you practice this. Okay? But again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can also just put your hands back and watch and kind of relax. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so I'm going to create an incident here. I'm going to do the same things I have before, use the same things. All right, come on in. I'm just creating another incident so you can get caught up really quickly. Okay, creating an incident with a caller. I'm going to say outage report for Jake. 1. Okay. And I'm going to assign it to me. So again, I'm going to run through this. We're getting used to this. It's kind of repetitive and boring. But you'll notice in my short description, this is a client complaining. And I've put in for Jake 1, just so that when I'm doing my demo, I don't screw up. Right? That's not a very realistic thing. Our clients often don't help us that much. I'll make sure that this is assigned to me. And I can either hit submit or save. They're both pretty much equivalent from my perspective. I'm going to click on submit to commit this to the database. Again, upon initial insertion, I'm going to be emailing this person at yahoo.com with a blank description telling them a record's been created on their behalf. Obviously, this would have been an email coming in from a client complaining, so they would have expected that. I'm going to go back. You can see that I'm back on incidents. I'll point out one new piece of information here that we haven't talked about before. If I'm on the incident table, I can also just click on New right here. I don't have to go back to my application navigator and click Create New Incident. If I'm back here, I can just click the New button. They're functionally equivalent. I'm going to click New, and I'm going to do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to make a second report, imagining 2 clients are complaining to me in the same period of time about the same outage. So I'll use the same configuration item. I'll use the same caller, but you can just pretend with me that it's a different caller. I like to cheat a little bit. I'll call this outage report for Jake 2. I'll put in my assignment group. And again, assign it to me. In the real world, not just be in your assignment group, but I want to make sure I can see everything here for our demo, and click Submit. Okay. We'll go home. and take a look at my work. So imagine this is your list of outstanding records. And you can see, oh, shoot, we've got some people reporting an outage here. It looks like we have a big incident, and we need to manage this. Imagine not 2 reports, but 50, correct? I can go in and respond to each of these customers individually, but that doesn't sound like a lot of fun, okay? In this instance, I would like to take advantage of a specific piece of functionality called parent incident, okay? I'm going to establish a parent-child relationship between my incidents, and that allows me to do 2 important things. It allows me to communicate from the parent to all the children at once, and it also allows me to cascade close. So when I resolve the incident in the parent, I can shut down all the related child incidents. That make sense? So I'll walk through this a little bit slowly so you can see what happens. I'll do this to 2 incidents, but you can trust me, it'll work for as many as you link it to. Okay. I'm going to create another incident, a third, to be the parent to manage this. Let's assume I'm an incident manager and I'm in crisis mode. I'll go in and create a new incident to manage these client outage reports. I will put in my stuff. Here, I'm going to make sure I'm the caller. I'm the incident manager. I'm the caller on this ticket as well. I wouldn't want to have a client get this information. You'll notice that when I put this information in here, it's searching on UW-NetID and everything. This is a pretty fun search. As you play around, you might even find it searches on name, email address, alumni ID, student ID, other fun things like that too. So make sure you choose the right person. And I'm going to assign it to me. One important piece of advice if you're going to do this, label your parent a parent. That make sense? So I'm going to put in my short description, I'm going to call it parent. Okay? This is going to help you if you're managing this and you want to make sure that when I click on this record, I know it's a parent incident and it has the ability to communicate out to many clients at once. So you don't want to do this casually, obviously. So that's why I'm actually putting parent in here to make sure I can see that. And I'm going to click on submit. All right. For those of you following along at home, I'm at the point now where I have an outage from a client, 2 reports from the client, and I have a parent incident I've created, and I would like to manage these other 2 incidents. That make sense? Okay. So there are 2 ways to link incidents in order to make this happen. Right now, they're all just incidents. I need to link them. I'm going to copy this incident number for the parent and make note of that. This 14234. That's going to be very important. Okay? I'm going to go to any of these related incidents. So I'm going to go to outage report for Jake number 1. Assume that I'm a person saying, oh, yep, this is part of the big outage. I want to link it to the parent. Okay? I could communicate to the client if I wish, or I could just do the linkage. Down here, do you see a tab called Related Records? This is where I can enter the parent incident information. So under Related Records, I can paste in the incident and link it. I haven't actually put anything in the comments section for customer visibility, so I can actually just put in the parent information and save this. And this will now link it to the parent.
So you have to do this one by one.
That's one way to do it, yes. So if I have a parent incident number in mind and I'm triaging, you might want to read the incident too. It depends on your workflow. Read it to make sure it's associated with it and put them in one by one. I'll also show you the easy way to do it too. Yeah. So I'm going to click Update. So now I have in my work, I've got a parent and I've got an incident linked to the parent. Is that obvious from here? Well, the parent part maybe, but the linkage is not. Okay? So this is an important piece of functionality. that I want to stress here right now. My work shows incidents, requests, problems, and tasks, everything assigned to me. But it can't show parent information. It's a limitation of the system. I find it frustrating, but it is built in. So here's how we deal with that. If you were to look in the My Records section, you'll see that you can see a link for My Group's incidents. If you are managing an incident, here I'm going to show my stuff. A lot of stuff is in here. You should be able to find all of these in your group's incidents. So, for example, you see outage report for Jake. It's a little bit hard to see there. I apologize with my columns. This is going to be my group's incidents. This looks like a bad day. Hopefully you don't have a bunch of incidents or outages in your groups. But I see outage report for Jake 1 and 2. And I also see this parent demo. Is everyone able to see this now? Okay. I had a lot of junk in mine. So do you see how I right-clicked on my name and chose Show Matching? A little trick. I just did a filter to get rid of all the rest of the stuff to see this. So right now, I can see outage report for Jake number 1, and I can see the incident that is the parent. So from the incident table, and you can see that I'm working on incidents right now, I can see this parent-child relationship. Everyone okay with that? All right. So this tells me that if I were to click on this record, I would be communicating with this one. Now, I also want to associate outage report number 2 with the parent, correct? So let's all practice a skill. And if you don't have your incident view open, that's fine. But have everyone open up any filter, any list where you see a bunch of records in one shot. Everyone okay with that? Everyone grab a list view. I can actually double-click in cells from this screen and paste in information. So for example, I could paste in the parent incident information from this view and do the association on the fly. So I don't have to go into each incident and update the parent information. That address your question, Roland?
So you just go row by row.
Well, you can, or if you all have a list view open here, we're going to practice our superpower. You're going to hold the Windows key and Shift. Hold those 2 keys down. And I'm going to highlight across multiple cells. So I'm going to left-click and drag. It's kind of hard to see here, but do you see I have 4 highlighted cells? Is everyone able to do that? It's a little bit tricky, but it's something that requires practice. I had to practice it a lot, I'll admit. If I double-click on any of those highlighted cells, whoa, sorry, somehow that got moved. I could actually paste in information, and it says 4 rows will be updated. So I could have a long list of related incidents, and I can update them and link them to the parent all at once. Does that make sense? Is everyone able to do that? Or at least if you want to. I'm not going to do this here because I don't know anything about these incidents. So I'm not going to commit this.
Those were all consecutive. Could you?
Yeah. There's another combination. That's a great question. Thank you for. I'm going to click the X to stop this. I could click on one. I can do Control-Shift and click on non-contiguous cells. Control-Shift. So Windows-Shift allows you to do the contiguous selection, and Control-Shift allows you to do non-contiguous. Sound okay? This is something I had to play around with key combinations to figure out. Everyone able to do that a little bit? Again, this is if you need to do multiple updates. But again, it'll allow you to make any legal update to any of your records. So in this instance, parent is useful, but I could also change things like an assignment group or the assigned to field in the same fashion. So this multiple update is very powerful from any list view. I'm going to back out of that. I'm just going to do the parent incident demo now. So I can now see that I have these 2 incidents related to this parent, correct? So I'm going to go in here and do an update for you. I'm going to go to the parent. Now, there's no big warning flag saying, hey, you're working a parent incident. you're about to communicate to multiple clients, correct? So that's why I was kind of highlighting and pausing when I showed you that list. If you scroll down to the very bottom, you will, however, see that there's going to be a list of child incidents on the parent incident record. So here, if I had 100 related incidents, I would see the long list of them. So at this point, I know I'm going to communicate to a lot of clients. So now, I'm going to go to the comment section and note that any information put in the comment section is going to be propagated out through all of those child incidents. That sound okay? Say, hello, we are working on it. Obviously, I would not have typos if I was going to be doing this in an incident management scenario. All right, I'm going to click on Update. So this is going to be an update to all my clients that we understand there's an outage and we're working on it. Okay, now, because I'm sure you don't just trust me, I'm going to go to one of these child incidents and show you that it went out. So if I look in the log of this child incident, I can actually see that this went out. There's a little nuance in the system where the email, you notice there's no email icon here? It takes a second for them to be queued up and sent out. So if I come back to this record in 30 seconds or a minute, the email will be there for me to verify. You're going to have to trust me on that one. So an email will go out. It will contain the description of the child incident and the communication via the comments from the parent. Is that clear? So I can communicate out to many records at once. Remember how I said that you can't close an incident or request with open tasks? Correct? You're going to be very careful about this if you're working a parent incident scenario. In this particular scenario, let's say I just fixed the issue. I want to close out 50 related incidents. Make sure you don't have open tasks on those child incidents. You're going to get hung up. So that's something really important to manage. If you're going to be managing incidents and be a lot of records together, don't have child incidents or child tasks. Don't have incident tasks on child incidents.
So is there a way to check that?
No. Well, you can look at all open incident tasks, but it would be tedious to figure out if any of these associated child incidents have open tasks. So the best thing is to just make sure you don't do it. Go through them and clean them up. When you realize you have a big outage, you want to make sure you clean up your incidents and when you do your linkage. So that when you go through and you're associating them with the parent, you can close out those tasks as you do it. If you need tasks, make them on the parent. Right? If you're going to use the task functionality in a big outage, make all the tasks on the parent. I know that's complicated, but I just want to stress that.
If you close out a child incident,
That's fine.
will it close out its associated tasks?
Nope, you have to close tasks individually before you close the child.
So it won't let you close the
It
child.
will not let you close a child incident if it has open tasks. So comments on iTasks only speak back to the incident itself. No, but the work notes from the parent incident will show up on all the child incidents as well. So you can communicate down via the work notes, but tasks only communicate back to the associated record. That's something that you're going to want to practice with and make sure you understand the workflow there for communication. Yeah?
So in this situation, if you do have a task buried in 50 child templates, and you went and press the close button, is it just going to give you a warning, or is it going to
It'll-
process?
It'll try to process it, and it'll give you an informative error message saying that X incident can't be closed because it has open tasks. You'll have to close that one separately. And I'm using the term closed. I apologize. I said it many times. I meant resolved, right? They can only become closed after 3 business days, so it can only be resolved. But yeah, you'd have to go in and resolve that one separately.
Then it will continue to process the rest of it?
Yes, it will process all the rest. So if you then have a few open child incidents, you could go and resolve those separately and close out those tasks.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So from a practical perspective, it should work just fine. Okay, let's close this out. I'm going to go back. I can also click on Update here, right? I don't have anything in my customer comments. So if I click Update, it's going to take me back to the list I was at before. Okay, let's assume I did one update, and now I've actually fixed the problem, and I want to communicate out to all my customers that the outage is resolved, and I want to resolve those issues. The outage is over. Let's say outage. Whoa, sorry about that. That was fun. Gotta love Windows. Outage over. Yay. I'm imagining you'll be more professional than me, but I have to have a little fun with this. So I would like to communicate this message to all the child incidents and also close them all down. Okay? You might be thinking of other scenarios that you may manage that may be less than an outage, but it still applies. You can still do a mass communication and a cascade resolve. I'm going to go to State and choose Resolved. When we resolve an incident, I'll point out that we have to put in a close code. So I'll say solved workaround and server fixed. One difference between incident and request is that close notes are required for an incident, and that's because the process owner wanted it that way. So you'd put in your notes, you'd put in a close code, and I'm going to click on Resolve Incident. Everyone okay with that? I see some people fatigued. That's okay. This is just fluff for some of you, of course, but for some people it's going to be critical functionality. So it's okay if you don't imagine using this. I'm going to click on Update, and let's see what happens. You're going to have to trust me on this one, but you'll notice that those outage reports for Jake are no longer here. They were cascade resolved, and they're now out of our list. Obviously, if the customer objects, they could respond and reopen those child incidents as well. You okay with that? So that was just a little bit of functionality on top of the normal incident if you wish to use it. So you can see now why, if you need to be using the parent incident functionality, you need to be working from the incident table, because this particular piece of information is only available when you're working from the incident table. By and large, when you're looking at my work, you're looking at the task table, and it doesn't indicate that. And again, it's a limitation of the system. So if you don't anticipate using parent incidents, you don't need to worry about that, and you can just look at the task table for all of your work. Okay? Great. Thank you for sticking with me on that one. Let's talk a little bit about problem. So a lot of people don't do problem. How many people plan on using problem? Very few hands get raised. Tom's an exception. You're an exception as well. So you could generate a problem from scratch. So you could go into the problem application and create new. Okay? A more common scenario would be to look at an incident and say, yep, we need to resolve this, but I need to track the underlying information as a problem. That would be a more common scenario. So if you all could go back to my work. So if you go back to your home page, you guys have incidents in there on your home page. If you don't have anything to work from, you could also click on My Group's Incidents. The beauty of this big, messy eval environment is that we're all member of UW IT staff, so there should be at least some incidents in there for you to play with. So if you guys would choose any incident, I'm going to grab someone else's here. From an incident, I'm going to right-click on the gold bar. Oh, wait, this one is... Why is it not there? Oh, Jake. Oh, there's a parent. Okay, sorry. I'm going to grab an incident, right-click. Oh, Jake. Where's my Create Problem button? I've done this a million times before. Huh. That's really odd. Are you guys, when you right-click, do you get the ability to create problem? Yes. Okay. I don't know. For whatever reason, I chose two incidents, but I didn't have that button. But if you're working an incident and you realize I need to resolve this, restore service as quickly as possible, but I also want to track the underlying problem, you can right-click at any point in this process and choose Create Problem. What that will do, it's going to copy all of the log information from this incident over to the problem record for further investigation. That make sense? I think it might have been that those states were something other than active. Yeah. I've had it work when I did it before on all the states, even a closed incidents. So I don't know why I didn't see them on those. I have to admit, the things I don't know are many. So from here, I could choose and create problem from this. Okay. By clicking on that button, I haven't done anything really important to the incident itself. Okay? I didn't change the state of it. I didn't communicate to a customer, but I've generated a new problem record. A lot of these fields are going to be familiar to you already. The key component here would be, I'd like to put this problem in an assignment group where people can investigate it further. So this depends on your own service and your service design. Who's going to watch your problems? Who's going to manage them? So I'll put it in my group. It's not expected that people would do this casually, by the way. I would envision a service manager saying, hey, everybody, we're tracking a particular problem. If you find future occurrences, please log it against X, or something like that, something formal. All right, and I'm going to right-click and save. Wait, I apologize. I'm going to assign it to me. Remember, I don't like losing things, so I'm going to assign it to me. Right-click and save. So this problem record can sit around for a while, and when I have time or when we have the money for a future hardware update, we could then address it at that point. This is going to be independent of the incident record, and there's no ability to communicate to a customer via this record. That makes sense? So this is going to be internal tracking for future diagnosis. The phrase that's used is a root cause analysis to try to figure out why those incidents were occurring. Yeah.
Is this only a one-to-one relationship?
Nope, it's a many-to-one relationship. So if you look at the very bottom of this problem record, since I created this record, this problem from an incident, that incident is actually associated with it. So I can go on and work that incident, resolve it, do whatever I need to, but the problem record still reflects that. Okay?
Second question. I noticed there was no due date.
There's no due date, no. That sounds like a useful field if you wish to request it. All these things are.
Useful field, I think, though, if you process possible.
Yeah, there might be workarounds for you in order to to enter it. I'm not sure. Problem management right now, actually, they're using the phrase problem control. We have the ability to track problems, but we aren't implementing sophisticated problem management just yet. This is just in its infancy. So it's just the ability to link incidents to a problem for future tracking and resolution.
Is there any way to assign a second incident or
Yeah.
associate a second incident?
Yeah, thank you. That's the next part of this demo. Yeah. So I have this problem number, and let's assume that I would like to attach additional incidents to it. Let's go back to my work. I could go in and find a second incident. I'm going to grab one, and I hope I don't screw it up. I'm going to grab randomly here. It usually works better if it's scripted a little better, but that's life. I'm going to go to another incident, and following your hypothetical, I want to attach this incident to that same problem record. If you scroll down here, you see a Related Records tab. See a Related Records tab? This is where you would insert that problem information. And clearly, I linked it to a different one, but this is the beauty of working in eval with data changing all the time. I will put this problem in. I put in a new problem to be associated with it, and I can click Save. So I'm going to right-click and save because I want to stay here. And you'll notice that I might want to find out what that problem is. So if I'm looking at an incident and I can see it's linked to a problem, I could click on this information icon and follow that and go to that related problem. So in this particular problem that I've set forth, I now have 2 incidents associated with it. Does that make sense? This is something I just wanted to introduce to you and have you experiment further if you want to, so we can associate incidents with a problem. You can't associate requests with a problem. So if you wish to use problem, you have to convert your requests to incidents.
Can a problem reference another problem?
There's no field for it, but you could always put that information in somewhere. but it's not a formal entry, like this problem is related to this problem. There's no field for it. Yeah. That's a great question, though. A meta problem? A really big problem? Yeah. Yes, yeah. Okay. Everyone okay with that? Okay. This is something you need to experiment with. Okay. And also, we have some problem process owners and managers. They wouldn't mind talking with you about that and talking about the process as it evolves. So as a service team, if you wish to do that, you could email help@you, like we say for everything, right? But it will get routed to them, and they'll work with you if you'd like to implement problem management in the future. Okay, home pages. We are on the home stretch. We have 15 minutes left. I'm sensing some fatigue. How many people are a little bit tired right now? But you're honest. I appreciate that. What we're going to do is show you how to customize a home page, and we're going to then go into production and also show you how to update your information in the production environment. Okay? Home pages and reports. Okay. If everyone clicks on the home on UW Connect, you see home page. You might decide that this default home page is not your cup of tea. Okay? If you were to go in here and edit this page, I could delete content. See this X at the top? I could just start deleting content off of it. And by doing that, I've actually created a my home page. So I've created a version for myself. That make sense? So I could go in there and delete all this content, rename it. And I'm going to hit refresh. I found that I have to hit refresh for some reason. I don't know why. So did everyone see that workflow? For whatever reason, I can never get my names to stick unless I refresh the page after I delete content. So right now, you'll see in my drop-down, I have my original homepage, and I also have this new homepage called Updated by Jake. Does that sound okay? From your home pages, you can add additional contact or content. I'm going to click on the Add Content button up here, and then be patient. Did everyone have a chance to make a saved filter earlier in the class? We all have a saved filter. That's great. You can add a lot of information to your home pages. I find most of it to be less than useful. But if you scroll to the bottom of this first column, you'll see an option for filters. So it's all the way at the bottom of the first column. You can see filters. And remember, I stressed when we were making that filter that it was being made against the task table. You guys all caught the emphasis of that? So we made a filter that shows everything we've updated, and we made it against the task table. So when you go to the next phase, you need to choose which table your filter was made against, okay? And so that's why knowing the tables is important for the advanced functionality. So you can click on task, and then if you click on task, you should be able to find in this list the filters that either you have made or have been saved to your groups. Is that okay? So if you don't like the default homepage, you can build your own filters that show your own view of the data. For example, Lauren over there might be following my group. Even though you're not a member of the support group, you might want to see what we see. So you could have a homepage that shows all of the records for a particular support group. In this instance, I made a filter called All Updates, or All Updates by Jake, I believe. I had another one in there. You can see that I have a ton of filters. I'm going to go back and choose Jake's Update. It's going to show me a real-time view of that filter. And at the bottom, it may be difficult to see, I can choose the position of that filter on my home page. Add here. So right now, I've got a custom home page. Every time I click on the UW Connect logo, it's going to display this page with this filter of the data. Now, this may not be what you want to see on your homepage. Just want to point out you can do that. If at any time I want to go back to the original homepage, I can click on Homepage, and I'm back to the default. And I can go and look at additional custom pages. Everything I make will be in this section. So I could have home pages constructed for different slices of the data if I want to take a look at it. Any questions about that? So the hope is that the default home page will function for a lot of people. But if you want to look at a different slice of the data, you're absolutely welcome to. You're not limited to what you can see. You can do a filter on any piece of data in the entire database and look at it. I'm going to talk very briefly about filters. At this point in the demo, people are often too tired to really absorb filters. But I would like to just show you, filters, reports. If you guys could click down here on the reports application. How many people are excited about getting more data out of the system than you can get in RT? A few people? So if you click on View, Run, so I'm on Reports and View, Run, I now have a dizzying array of built-in reports that can be run against the data. Okay? Just to get you oriented, over on the left-hand side, these are global reports. If you were to edit any of these, you essentially create a version for yourself. So I can start from a baseline report and start building something. Over on the right-hand pane, you can see the reports I've made. And at the bottom of that pane, I can see the group reports that I've made or other people have made and shared with me. This is going to be the third warning about group stuff. If you go in here and delete a group report, you delete it for all your group members. So again, play nicely. This is to share as colleagues. Everyone okay with that? I'm going to show you a report that I made. If you guys all look in the bottom right of the group reports, do you see my group's records in the last 2 months? Do you see that report? Let's click on that. The first thing that shows up is a condition builder, how I constructed it. If you were to scroll down, you'll actually see the result of this report. So a while ago, my boss started pestering me for data about our ticket volume in RT. He wanted to know daily, weekly ticket volume. What I have here is a real-time report showing 8 weeks of data, week by week, and each color is a different assignment group. He doesn't have to ask me for data anymore. I can share this report with him. Actually, he's gone now, but that's irrelevant. I could share this report, and he could see it anytime he wants. That make sense? So you might be saying, oh, that's an okay report, Jake. I'd like to play with it and use it for myself. Anyone want to do that right now? No? Well, I'll show you anyway. Now, please keep in mind, if you came in here and started mucking about, you would change it for everyone. I want to point out that you could change the name. So anyone who wants this report, follow along exactly. The rest don't touch anything. Change the name in here. And click on Insert. Insert is a ServiceNow-ism. What it really means is copy. If you were to click the Save button, it actually would change the name, change the underlying report for everyone. If you click on Insert, you actually create a new version. Okay? And right now you can see that this is visible to everyone. Right? If you go into a group report, you can change and make it only visible to me, change the name and customize it, and then put in Insert. That make sense? So I just want to show you a little bit of etiquette and how to work with these. If you look down here, you can see I took that group report and I made it with this weird name in my reports. Now I can go in there and edit to my heart's content. That sound okay? And just to get you started, I'm going to show you how I started that report. Again, if you want to go into this, you're going to have to learn on your own, but it's fun. If you were to scroll way down in this list, and it's actually kind of crazy, let's see how many we can do. I went all the way down to task, and I started building that report from task, and I clicked on my group's work.
So there's already some pre-population.
Yeah, and that task one there is a basic filter that shows some data. but I was able to change the parameters to get a different display of data. You could also just take my report and start editing from there as well. This is a great way to share data amongst team members. You can also click on, we don't have a lot of time left, click on a schedule button, so you can actually schedule the email of a report on a periodic basis and things like that. So it's very powerful. So experiment with that if you're really into data. We don't have a lot of examples. What I hope to do is make a video of how I made that report just to teach people. But if you have that base report, you can start tweaking it and go from there. Everyone okay with that? Excellent. All right. You guys ready to go into production? You feel enabled? Okay. So keep in mind, no updates will be saved in eval. So if you go in and change your notification preferences, make filters, make custom pages, it will all be lost. So if you want to start getting ready and build things that are production ready, we need to make those edits in production. So let's all go to the browser and make a small edit to our URL. I've changed it to uw.service-now.com. And just to reiterate, the eval installation is always going to be there for you to experiment. So if at any time you say, you know what, I want to run through that parent incident scenario again. I'm feeling self-conscious, I don't want to screw up, come back to eval and run through it. Run through it as a team, right? Practice. I want to say practice makes perfect, because only perfect practice makes perfect, but feel free to come back to eval anytime to work on it. So, big change. It's blue instead of orange or gold.
And what's the URL?
It's just uw.service. So just delete eval and re-enter the URL. So uw.service-now.com. And it's on your page for future reference. So a little bit of data are in here, but this really is the production environment. On the cutover date, this is where your stuff is going to start routing from RT. Instead of RT, it's going to show up here. I imagine you get a lot of emails as that date approaches. If you would click on your name.
Can we make it purple?
That sounds like a request. Yeah. This is the official blue. It matches IT Connect, so you know. Click on your name. Here's where you update your contact information. And if you go down that on-call rotation path, just remember it's going to blast all your numbers. So keep them. That's the way it is by default. I don't know if it'll screw it up if you take away the +1, but that's the way it is by default. If you want, you can also update your notification preferences down here. So if you all would click to follow that, you can see that there are a dizzying number of notifications that you can receive. And in here, I can also adjust my primary email notifications to even change the parameters of that. If you wish to get a text for any reason, the way you do that is click on New Device. So I clicked on my notification preferences, and I have New Device. I have the ability to come in here and choose SMS Plus. I can put in my service provider and my number. And that way, if I want to get a text whenever I'm assigned a record, I could do that. It's up to you. One other note on on-call, if you put in, it's a short description that gets texted to people and also gets read aloud. So if you're going to go down that road, practice with it and make sure you know what you're doing if you want to get things sent to your phone, your cell phone. Everyone okay with that? So updates to your rotation schedules need to happen in production, and all of your notification preferences as well. Filters, everything you make them in production so that they get retained. Everyone okay with that? Excellent. In our remaining minutes, I want to show you what our customer sees. Every communication from us is going to have a link in it, and it's going to be linking back to IT Connect, our customer-facing portal. So they're going to be able to see all of their current requests. Again, they don't care if something's a request or an incident. They're indifferent to that. And they can click on something and see the status. For example, these are 4 active requests within the service center. If I drill down and select one, I will see the description tab. And again, whenever the customer hits this, it's going to have the current description. And I've checked the updates back and forth. It is instantaneous, or at least as close as I can test. They're going to see all of the comment history, and they also have the ability to respond to us via the portal. They can always respond to the email, right? They can just reply and communicate back to us, or they could reply within the portal itself. I just want everyone to see an image of what that looks like. This can actually be simulated if you go to UW-IT, or the Intech homepage. It's dash test, IT Connect dash test. Sorry, not Intech, IT Connect dash test if you have access to that. Everyone okay with that? So this is what they see.
So I noticed that to the clients, it's IT Connect. To us, it's UW Connect.
Well, they don't care what we call UW Connect, right? They don't see that ever. So the customer is going to get communication from Help at You, and they're going to see an update in IT Connect. And that's going to be the portal. They're never going to see the word UW Connect. Only we do. Yeah, good point. That's a great point.
Because if a client calls and says, I'm in IT Connect, I'm going to go, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, we have to know that they're referring to our portal if they're seeing it in IT Connect. That's a great clarification. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Great. Okay. You survived. You're going to get emails about this, but on the 25th, networking and some automated monitoring are going to be cut over. July 8th, most of us are going to be live in production, and July 15th for CTE. We have a lot of documentation available online, so if at any time you want to learn more, click on that question mark in the top right, and I'm going to show that and stress this. Up in the top right, there. We have this question mark. And in here, we have customized articles to help you out in advanced topics. And I'm also going to put training videos in here as well. If you want to come back and watch again, if you're a glutton for punishment, I'll have some more advanced videos in here as well. Any questions?